Hi everyone, I hope you are doing well. So today I wanted to record a little message around DNA activation, karma clearing, and light codes and what that really means for your twin flame journey. I've been trying to record this message for the last couple of days, but because I wasn't feeling well, I just haven't been able to get it out. But nevertheless, this one is definitely for those that have been on the journey a while. You've been doing the inner work. So I'm going to try and explain what's really happening behind the scenes, your purpose that's really tied into it as it relates to Mother Gaia. And hopefully this will kind of all come together for you a little bit. Now, I do want to preface this video by saying, if you've seen some of my other content, I am not at all focused on the romance aspect of this journey. You coming into union with your divine counterpart is something that ends up happening regardless of, all that you have to go through on this journey. But union with your divine counterpart is not the goal. It is the byproduct of what happens. So hopefully when you hear this message, that'll really resonate with you a lot more. But what I want to kind of talk about here is, first off, Kundalini awakening. You know that you're going through a Kundalini awakening. You got activated onto this journey for a very specific purpose. And, I've often mentioned the design of the twin flames and why you came in pairs. And really, it's to really help you because you're so needed on this planet at this time. It's an expedited way to have this, chaser, this runner, and have that love aspect, which is meant to really help you figure out what you're here for. And, the hard part is you're running outside for a little bit, but when you finally figure out that the journey has to be kind of, navigated from within, is when everything starts to come together for you on this journey. Now, with that being said, we know that Kundalini, as it's rising through the chakras, is really just trying to complete a purification process, right? Clearing out your chakras, clearing out old energetic patterns, old, patterns that have been there from your ancestry, all of that. But that is also taking you through, as you're going through this Kundalini awakening, the other part that's coming together for you is your DNA activation. And basically what this means is that your body is trying to restore you back to your original blueprint. Now, definitely this is something that can be painful physically for some, because it just means you are clearing karma, old energetic patterns stored in your DNA, and releasing anything that no longer serves you. Now, of course, this varies for each individual depending on your patterns, what you've agreed to, what you've signed up for. And that's why I say don't focus on people's journey. If it's taking somebody 6 months, it's because they've got less to deal with than what you signed up for. So really don't look at the time on this journey. But once you understand how much is happening, you can really appreciate, and you kind of want it to take whatever time it's going to take, not trying to rush it, because it'll help you breathe through the process, integrate what's needed, so that, you're not rushing anything. My journey personally was not easy in terms of the health aspects of it. Very, very difficult in terms of trying to get through the health aspects of it. And I'm actually going to make a separate video on that, because time and time after, again, I'm reminded that there's a collective out there that can really resonate with everything I've gone through, and it's meant to really help them. So hopefully I'll do some videos around the dietary changes I had to make in order to get through the Kundalini awakening journey, as well as, what I did to really cope with getting through the health aspects of, the sickness that I was dealing with, and all of that, as the chakras were really clearing. So hopefully that'll make sense to somebody out there. Now, I do talk a lot about, releasing all that you need to on this journey, because if you are not paying close attention, you are going to end up resisting what you need to let go of on this journey, and that ends up prolonging your journey. It just means that you are going to stagnate. You're going to, be stuck in pain and suffering for a longer period of time. So in order for Kundalini to rise, to purify, to get to those higher states of consciousness, for your DNA to actually activate and restore itself to your original blueprint, which then, of course, leads you to unlocking your gifts and all of that, right? This is all happening simultaneously as you ascend. You need to be able to be very careful of, taking a look at what you need to let go of. And I really want you to think about this all in terms of vibration, because that's what everything around you really is. Everything is vibrating at its own unique frequency. So when we talk about, shifting our external reality, all that is you becoming a vibrational match to what you are trying to attract into your life. Now, just a simple example, let's say you have a group of friends, right? And this is why saints and mystics throughout time have always told us, be wary of who you hang out with, because the company you keep is who you become. And so even if you take a look at billionaires or, millionaires, they will tell you that in order to shift into, a new identity, you need to start, focusing on people that have achieved what you want to achieve. Because if you start to act like them, if you start to embody the behaviors that they embody, then you can also get there. So everything is related to your vibration. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is because on this journey, sometimes people get, stuck, not being able to shift in vibration simply because they're not letting go of old patterns, old behaviors. That's all that we are. And so if you're trying to energetically shift, that means you're going to have to let go of the things you are doing, the things that are in your life, the routines that you've built. So you really want to take a look at, because this journey will show you what needs to be let go of. But if you cling to that old, you are not going to be able to shift in vibration. You are not going to be able to ascend, to that higher frequency that you're trying to get to. Now, another quick example of this, just so you can understand what might need to go. Let's say you're somebody that prior to your awakening has always loved to go to the gym, maybe 2-3 times a week. Without that, you're, feeling unhealthy, you're not feeling great. But on your awakening journey, you really have to get comfortable with stillness. And there are parts of this journey that will ask you to just slow down, absolutely slow down. And you are just so into your habit of going to the gym that you meditate daily. You're doing the inner work as far as you're concerned, but you can't see the shifts. Well, your body, your soul is asking you to slow down, which does not really jive with that routine of yours that, is about you going to the gym. So you're going to have to let that go so you can shift energetically. So this is just an example. I'm not targeting anybody that goes to the gym, but really take a close look at what your journey is calling for. Because if you don't, you are going to cause friction, you're going to cause resistance, and this is just going to be more frustrating, long, and painful when it doesn't need to be. There's the challenges, but then there's the resistance that we're creating, and that's something that we can easily kind of let go of. Now, with that, I want to talk about light codes. Twin flames are actually light bearers. What this means is that as you go through your Kundalini ascension, as you go through your DNA activation, you end up, releasing the light codes that have been encoded within you, which is needed for planet Earth, which is needed for Gaia. And the way that this is meant to work is, and I kind of mentioned this in some of my videos, is that twin flames have actually been very strategically placed across the earth, right? We're not all bunched up in one particular part. We're all over. And the reason why we're all over is because we are meant to work on the Earth's grid. Now, in case you're not aware, but Mother Earth is actually a conscious feminine energy. It also, just like us humans, has 7 chakras, which are basically specific locations, across the earth. And I'll actually probably put where the chakras are for the earth in the description in case you're interested. But just like us energetically, it kind of needs that restoration. As you are being reactivated, earth needs that as well. And so you are actually kind of acting like the conduit that light is being channeled through for Mother Gaia. We have, various the chakras that I mentioned. I'm going to put that in the description. But we also have, these subtle energetic pathways that are all around our body. Okay, this is called nadis in Sanskrit, which basically means movement. And this term is kind of reference towards invisible, subtle energy pathways where your life force energy actually moves through. So similarly, Earth actually has nadis, just like us, but those are called ley lines, which is forming the Earth's grid. And so you're positioned very strategically, and you are useful to Gaia once you end up going through your own journey, stepping into your power, stepping into, that DNA activation being unlocked. And with that, you are able to basically channel the light through you to help Gaia. Okay, so this is actually very, very important to your purpose. Some of us will be called to travel across the earth as we're needed, and you'll know when it's time for you to go, you will know. And some of you will just be stationed where you are. You may even feel a call to move somewhere else around the world. All of that is something for you to pay attention to because it's going to vary. But even if you did nothing and just stayed where you are, once you complete your journey, you are helping Mother Gaia basically restore herself through those nadis, those channels, those ley lines. So I hope that kind of makes sense. Now, for anybody that's listening to this, you're kind of new to all of this. You're probably thinking, that sounds so woo-woo. Like, I don't know. I personally had a very hard time with this as well. But I will tell you that when Kundalini actually started moving through my body personally, I actually was asking a lot of questions. This was a lot of introspection, asking my higher self. And I was lucky enough, and maybe you had the same experience, but I was lucky enough to get a lot of answers through my higher self, through immediate downloads, to answer the questions that I had. And one of the things that came through was grid work. I remember I was out for a walk in particular, just because I was feeling the call to be out in nature a lot. And I thought it was because I really needed to ground. And that might have been the case, but I remember going out for this walk, and all of a sudden I had this very quick flash of insight that my feet actually had this light traveling from my feet into the earth. And the question that I immediately asked was, wait a second, am I helping you? And basically from that, what came was, I thought all this time that I needed to be out in nature because I needed to ground. But what that ended up unraveling for me was that this is an energetic exchange between me and others like me, between Earth and myself and, others. And basically what's happening is you have obviously need the help from Gaia to ground yourself, but at the same time, you are acting as the conduit that is allowing that energy to really be channeled through you, and it is moving into Earth as it's needed. And so that's why we are placed where we are to do what we're doing. And at the same time, there is, that travel that's needed to help work with the Earth and repair it as needed across Earth's grid. Now, hopefully you can kind of see why I don't really emphasize the love aspect of the twin flame journey. I think this, connection is so highly romanticized everywhere. When you finally pull yourself out of it, you will see that there is so much to this journey. And really the grand design of, a runner and a chaser is really just meant to help you as quickly as possible figure out the spiritual journey so that you can get to work doing all the other things that you really need to do. And one of them, universally, is going to be the grid work, because we're all needed in order to really do our part. This is only really possible once you've, shifted energetically. You have reached that divine union, reached that place of unity, gone through your clearing, your karma clearing, gone through your DNA activation. Like, you really have to appreciate all that is going into this journey and that really you need to move through. But again, it's all only really possible once you do that inner work and you come out the other end. So important. You are here for a very grand purpose. So when this journey really gets tough, remind yourself how grand of a journey you really have ahead of you and why it's so important for you to accomplish what you need to accomplish so that you can truly focus on what's needed on this journey. Also, just, always remind yourself that this journey is much, much bigger than you, and you are a part of it because you were deemed worthy and capable to actually get through it. So if you've been struggling on the journey, it's been longer, and you're taking a look at some other people to say, how did they complete it in 6 months or a year? And here I am, trying to tug along for a year, 2 years, 3 years. Understand that you have a lot more work to get through, a lot more healing probably needed from your ancestry, and that's why it's taking some time. And understand that there is a higher power that's really guiding this. So if you feel like, oh my God, this is taking forever, understand that you kind of need those pauses to really give yourself a breather, because there is a lot unraveling. And if I didn't have the pauses that I had in between all the sickness that I've gone through, I don't know if I'd be able to really have the courage to make it through on the other end. So, with that, hopefully you have a greater perspective on all that's really kind of there for you to work through, and let that be your motivation that keeps you going, keeps you pushing through, because you're really, really needed. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope this was helpful. God bless.